There, all pinned. Now I'm going to turn them right side out, and I'm going to meet you at the sewing machine. So I've selected just your ordinary everyday zigzag stitch. It's got a width of 3 millimeters and it has a length of 4. I'm going to stitch this so that the left zig goes on the elastic and the right zig goes just on the fabric. I'm going to put a little video together and I'll be right back. Okay, let's sew. I'm turning my PJ bottoms so they're right side out, and I do that so that when I put it under the sewing machine, I've got the majority of the fabric on top instead of tucked in underneath where strange things can happen. So let's just make it flat right at the sewing machine needle. Like I said, I have a zigzag stitch selected. I'm going to sew so that when the needle goes zig to the left, it's going to go on the elastic, and when it goes zag to the right, it's going to come off. So without doing any stretching or anything, just make sure this first little bit is smooth and even. Notice that my seam allowance is opened. If you'd serged this, you wouldn't have to do that. So a couple of stitches just to get things anchored. Now I'm going to move my right hand, because I tend to direct my fabric with my right hand, to where the pin is marked, where I've quarter pinned the elastic and joined it to the next seam. I'm going to put one hand in behind, the other hand is on top, and I'm stretching my elastic. I'm going to back the camera off just a little bit so you can see a little bit more. Okay, that might be better. Alright, so the right hand is on the seam, the left hand is in behind. I'm stretching the elastic, and then I'm pressing it down against the throat plate of the sewing machine, using my other hand to kind of drag the fabric over, so just, I don't know, it's about 1/8 of an inch, I guess, is peeking out there. And now I'm going to sew as long as my seam allowance looks even there. It's getting a little bit wide here, so I'm stopping, rolling things around a little bit. I'm again doing the stretch front, stretch back, dragging my fabric over just a little bit so there's not too much sticking out off to the edge there, and then I'm going to stitch again. Almost at my first seam. I'm close enough that I can take this pin out. Now I'm moving my right hand again to the next seam, stretching the elastic so it lays flat. I want this seam allowance underneath to be flat, so I've stopped for a sec just to do that. And now I'm going to stitch up and over the join in the elastic. Did that a little bit slowly because I don't want terrible things to happen here, like breaking needles. And now I'm on the next. You see my cutting isn't very straight, but it's going to be buried inside. You won't be able to tell on the finished garment. So again, I'm pulling just enough to stretch the elastic, holding it from the back, pressing it against the throat plate of the sewing machine, and stitching to my next pin. I'm going to work my way around, and I'll be back.